Hey, this is part 2 of the video run where I actually have some time to do some reflection and analysis. I was not expecting that. It was kind of crazy. I thought it was more about vocal or something else, but no, it's almost entirely about meaning and the song. So I'm not gonna really comment on the singing ability nor design or even color, everything else, because all that comes secondary to the meaning of the song. So I'm just gonna focus on that because the set, I believe it was like an empty room, two pale lamps. He's in hospital gown, and it's almost like it's very stripped. But by the way, I'm just gonna rambling on, so I don't want to spend time edit this. So it's like everything's stripped to its bare, and it's not extreme. The most nice accommodations. Then it's almost like inside his mind, right? Where the mind battle takes place, the landscape of the arena. Because when you're fighting with yourself, because the mind just an organ. People think they are their thoughts, but it's like who's watching that? That's the typical thing you have to think about. Then if you take that into consideration, then really it's not so much the space or the size of the space. It's almost like the type of space. Music is good. I don't know. I'm sure there are musicians out there doing much better reviews on that, and as well as singing ability. And I'm not gonna compare that to Dimash because I'm not gonna compare anybody's singing to Dimash. I have a few notes here. This is about 10 minutes after I made the last video or heard the last video. I just wanted to jump on there while I still remember some stuff. I have the lyrics open, and even the lyrics is so long. Oh my god, Jesus. There's some stuff that I don't want to say on the notes because that implies it's too obvious. But it is obvious if you just think about it. Like this part of the lyrics that says, "You thought I buried me, I always come back." It just means, obviously, the shadow self intrusive thoughts. And if you want to go deeper, it's just essentially the same thing, the repressed dark echo from fraud. I'm not sure if there's any other deep meaning regarding the gun and wheelchair besides the surface level that his lived reality. Maybe there's some reference to some movie, something. I'm just reading the lyrics, and anything thoughts come to mind, I'll just tweet out to you guys. Not sure about that. That's just what's going on. The fourth war is interesting. Deadpool fourth war. I remember I wrote something about that. So it's like a wink to us, the viewers, but it it forces you to think differently and not just to take everything on face value. Because this song has a few levels, right? So there is what you see, then there's obviously what everything represents, and then maybe there's other connections the images and lyrics connects to. It's the third one and the fourth one that I was trying to find something to talk about. This part here, I put a note down here. There is a part in the lyrics that talk about a step program, the pills and medicine. Obviously, marks the current culture of just patch up the bandit culture of quick fix, patch up the symptoms, and not really delve into the cause of anything. And this is a critique on the entire Western, especially U.S. pharmaceutical industry. Right? The religious stuff is obvious, so I'm not going to say anything about that. And there's always elements in the video that you can attach whatever meaning you want to. He sits down in the chair, he is born and he's bound to the chair. When he gets up, it's almost like he got out of that prison. He became personal victory kind of thing. So there's little things like that you can always attach meaning to. Or your pendulum in when you talk about the pendulum swinging back and forth in the universe. I didn't think about it as a pendulum. I wrote something down. It's supposed to yin yang, right? But what I also thought in mind, the thing that comes across is it's not so much about a pendulum, because pendulum is like this. What he experiences, and as anybody who has any addiction or any mental illness, what you experience is not this. What you experience is a rubber band that gets pulled this way, and then over a very short amount of time, it goes bang, and it goes that way. So yes, the pendulum depicts the idea that you can go from one side to another side. Rubber band, however, the pendulum doesn't change. It doesn't change its time. That doesn't matter if it's swinging this much or it's swinging this much. The time that goes from left to right, the highest point, as long as no other forces are involved, is the same. But a rubber band is totally different. So the higher you feel, when it goes down and you let go, the worse it bounces to the other side. So I was thinking, instead of pendulum, I was thinking a rubber band. Let's see. The shadow self versus authentic self. I just want to point out my own thoughts is that there is really no authentic self versus non-authentic self, or a good self versus a bad one, a shadow one versus a light one, a good angel versus a dark angel, a devil on the shoulders. These are concepts we make up in our mind again. It's mind games. Ultimately, what is that you cannot help but be your authentic self. You're always authentic self. The difference is how much of yourself that you're displaying and you're showing is influenced by fear. So when in the Western, I think when people say authentic self, they generally means express yourself without fear. Express yourself honestly. When people don't do it honestly and they lie about it, is generally because they have ulterior motives. And if you keep tracing back, it comes down to selfishness, which comes down to want more for self, less for others, which comes down to a fear of not getting enough. So it's always you can help but be yourself. It's just how much fear and control and other elements that's in there for the most part. And so, but for the sake of think about this song, I will think of it in terms of light, dark, and because that's very apparent and people can relate to that much easier. So I would say true self and authentic self is one that you can is how you would act if you do it honestly, express yourself honestly without fear. And of course, it gets a little bit more complicated with him because now we're dealing with the mind versus the brain. We're dealing with psychological as well as the spiritual. We're dealing with it's like where do you draw the line between the biological versus what's happening that's not just purely on a cellular level. So all these stuff is gradients that you really have to think about where you draw the line. I'm trying to go fast with this. I wasn't lying when I say every each of those points I can probably talk for 10 minutes on, and I only have 15 minutes. One of the main thing that he's really, I guess, is what makes this sound really resonate with so many people is because not just the time that we live in and the obvious stuff with the mental health issue, is that your brain, right? Your brain is conditioned almost like a machine that it has its own thoughts, memories, and you are watching it, right? So you're the awareness that's watching the brain, and then if you can keep going back, what's awareness watching that, and you go all the way back until you cannot go back any further, and then that's why I said that's Buddhism plays a part in that view of the world. But he's talking about shoot, I lost my thought for like 2 seconds. In this sense, you cannot really kill the dark part and keep the light. This very nature of killing try to kill the dark part is just that very act of killing the dark part. That part of trying to the brain, that process of trying to do that is the dark part. You gotta realize that it's like you use a stick and try to get rid of a line in the sand. You're just gonna make it deeper. It doesn't work that. Not a great analogy. Maybe a pen. I don't know. So it's about integration, right? Not annihilation. Oh God, I'm just my mind is so spread out right now. I can't even put everything together in a logical, more cohesive whole. So I just I'm talking about like parts that I can talk about. There's obviously the societal and sociological viewpoint. Where's my water? This got me thinking a lot, right, about the stigmas we have regarding a lot of things in society, chronic illnesses, psychosis, and there's just a lot of things that's really weird about the Western world that as someone who lived all over the world and actually lived, not just traveled around in very different cultures, there's just aspects that's just very weird. One, for example, this is not with the sound. We know how many people, roughly by percentage of population, how many people are disfigured. They're born disfigured, or they suffered some kind of accident, or a burn victim. Those are of such percentage of population that if they were to act like everybody else and go out like everybody else, if they were to do that, hell, or even take away, they'll do it half as often. Every single year, each one of us would encounter at least a bunch of them. But when the last time you saw burn victim in public? It's like we swipe since people that need help under the sofa, right? And it's under the rug, and it's just not good. And the same thing, Western world deals with a lot of issues that it finds uncomfortable, doesn't have a proper answer for. It just swept under the rug. It deals out with death. It deals out with the loss of sense of self, memories, loss of physical beauty. That's definitely going to happen. That's a big one. And God knows what else I can come up with if I think about a few more minutes. And it's also very common for people like Ren to express themselves through music, not a conventional means. He's not going to give a TED talk on his thing. What he does through music it conveys what he's going through and the issues that I talked about and he talked about, and much more, I think, viscerally, in a manner that it goes much more. It's less intellectual, even though it is there, but it also just bypasses that. It goes somewhere deeper, faster, because music is universal and music is basic human condition, just like visual art talk. So every element in most of the message, if right now I didn't spend too much time thinking about it, really serves the same message that everybody contains both light and darkness, and it is important to recognize that, but not trying to actively give energy to one to try to destroy it, because that only makes it stronger. So it's good that the music, I believe, it names and makes references to dark forces and demons, but without glamorize them. And I remember there was a part in the video, right, where physically throughout most of the video he's very small. He's in very vulnerable in the middle of the room. But when he gets up later in the end, I think I paused the video, but I finished with the ending. His entire sides, the camera I think zoomed in at that moment. I have to rewatch it to make sure to show that the whole frame is now coming out and he's able to breathe. And again, it's like a personal victory. Now the talk that he gave to the camera in the last part gives a lot of context that I would not otherwise. Well, I would have to research otherwise, but it makes a lot more sense. But honestly, a lot of them you already know from the song, just not specific details, but a lot of them you can know. And I think you would surprise, or maybe not surprise, which is even worse, most of us to know how many people can relate to what he's talking about here at various degrees. How many people can relate to it for at least 30% or more? Such a huge number, especially today, if you were to look at the population. This also correlates with the high view number of the song, because people just simply likes to listen to something that keeps mirroring back what makes sense to him, and his thoughts and his messages are overall very good. So some of the key takeaways that I would say is the worst one. Remember, the mind is just an organ, and the thoughts are not you, nor they have any more power than you give them to it. So any negative thoughts or positive thoughts, they're not they're not whole you. They're not even truly you. They're kind of they're like there to serve you. And not your true identity is something far greater. And honesty is a kind of art form. So if he was to try to hide all this stuff on his own and try to keep all this stuff in his own heart instead of making this music about it, he'll be in a way worse position. Yet many people, most people today, I guarantee you probably who I'm talking to right now, you have demons right now that you are so afraid to just share any part of it to even your closest friend. You have a mask on, right? When the nighttime comes and you go into bed and it comes down and there's no distractions except just you and your own mind, sometimes there's another voice that start talking. There's fears that you feel, but you just got used to it. You never, most of us, especially male in Western society, you just don't talk about that with anybody else. You don't express that. So stuff like this is relatively speaking rare, given how many people actually do experience the pain that he is going through and the pain that the greater pain that he did went through. But I like that he didn't describe it as just a bad luck, poor me. He didn't really give a sense of himself as a victim. He learns from it and basically described it as he's a student of it. While there's no winners and losers, he doesn't even think about it in terms of winners or losers, but as just I believe the students is the word he used, or disciple. I use disciple, and something to experience and understand as part of life. Life is not like a direct fluff pass or even a straight up fight if there's a problem. Sometimes it's a dance, and light and dark within us, we tread steps and we get better at dancing. We get better at when the negative energy of darkness come to us, and we get better at simply just go around and dance with it in a much more smooth kind of manner, much more relaxed kind of manner, different perspective, rather than try to punch it in the face and try to wipe it out, because that's not a thing. That's not going to happen. So the closing picture in the end, I believe, what did the videos do? Like the janitor, or was it? No, it was just him, right? There was because I watched the end that I paused early, and it's like there was a lone figure wheels himself into the center stage, and talks back to the voice that he was finished. I don't know. I have to, again, I don't remember. I'm going by memory here. So, but overall, that's high rent. It's not just a song. It's proof that even in a messed up culture regarding certain aspects of illnesses that we have to deal with, the show goes on, and we as humans are special in that we have the free will of an omnipotent being. That's his point in the end. Yet we have the vulnerability of a human. This combination is extremely unique, and this combination is almost like an absolute requirement if you are God or omnipotent being that wishes to experience life in a truly profound manner. Otherwise, the experience would not be as real. Would not, if you can do everything, if you know everything, then the experience loses its taste, its flavor, right? So it is important not to always be so into the mind, but sometimes be able to step out of it and look at it from a third person's point of view, which again, you are getting closer to your true self. In this case, I'm true self awareness, right? Because it's like watching the mind doing this dance with itself. Oh, yeah. The last thing that I do want to say is the reason it's absolutely important that you realize to not fight with your mind and try to negotiate with your mind out of any of those kind of bad situations. Instead of, you should at least do it. If you're going to do it from a third person point of view, because it's your own mind. It knows everything about you. It's logically just as part of your mind. So the negative side of your mind can convince you of anything. It knows what button to push. It knows exactly what to think, what to say to convince you to do whatever. That's why it's so hard to break out of certain habits. That is why it's so hard to find optimism even though everything around you is just not good, right? You're dealing with something that is essentially an evil you that knows everything about you. Again, I'm using the point of view that Western society tend to give to the shadow self and the light self, not my own point of view, which is really there's only one authentic self. It just one is controlled by it's just how much fear and selfishness and lying you are is corrupting that part. But the whole thing is still the fear, the lying, everything else. It's all still part of yourself. It's part of your conditioning. It's part of your brain. It's part of who you are. So it's like gaslighting, but times 100. Because the person who's doing the gaslighting is you to yourself. If you're not careful, and most people are, it's game over. It's very easy to just be stuck. It's so easy to be stuck. That's why people need help. You do need help. Very few people can get out of ruts like this on their own. Very few. Even if you are smart, the smarter you are, the more intelligent you are sometimes, the better your mind's able to use that against yourself and justify whatever you want to justify. I did mention a little bit about the song. One is about writing authentic songs, and another one is, well, how many songs it's not very successful, commercially successful. So we talked about that before regarding Dimash's presence in United States. So I don't want to go. We don't need to reopen that book again. And when people don't realize a lot of things that I just talked about before, especially young people, right? When they're young, what do? They start fighting with their minds. They try to, just like in music, the lyric it's like off each other like a battle, and that just makes things worse. And things do get worse. All the statistics basically corroborates it. I don't know if I'm probably missing a lot of other stuff if I'm thinking about it. Yeah. One thing that I really think is more true is that it's not a pendulum that swings from left to right. People can snap, and your 1 second it's not going to be a constant thing. In 1 second you can snap from here to there, like a rubber band. And more if this side is light, it snaps back to the shadows unless the whole thing is balanced. If you artificially pushed to this side, when you let it go to the darkness just as far. That's why all these celebrities are falling victims to alcoholism, drugs, whatever kind of addictions there is. Not just celebrities, everyday people. They have to deal with something, right? At first it's a bandage. Then at first they move the rubber band a little bit so they feel better. A little bit extra external force. Of moving the entire rubber band, right? They use a little bit of force here because it's elastic. But then they do a little bit more. And it's quite sad, really. What a song though. They need more songs like this. That well, it's already got 15 million views. That's good. But I wish more people would make more songs like this that is actually meaningful and not just extremely surface level. It's some of the popular pop songs out there right now. It's absolutely, I would say, terrible what they're doing. Because on the one hand, it's like a loop. I talked about this in the past at some point. One of the songs will say, I like you the way you are, singer, that's popular right now, will say, the way you are, hey girl, I love the way you are, I like the way you are. And then they obviously gets attracted to that, because that's what they need to hear. But then everything else from the same media, the same system, the magazines, the TVs, the commercials, and everything else tell them a all different story. That you have to be this way or that way in order to truly receive whatever benefits, he deserves to be loved. So they get depressed. And then when they get depressed, what's their solution? Listen to that guy, to those type of pop songs that have a very fake message that kind of like a drug dealer, right? The song itself becomes the drug, and you just keep going in this vicious circle, and that keeps a lot of things going, and that's what's actually required to keep a lot of the manufactured pop singers, just my opinion, relevant. All right, later, guys. Any thoughts, by the way? What do you think about the song? And any of your thoughts, leave that in the comments. There might be a lot of like historical and little things like that there's no way that I would know that I would unless I do some research on it. So yeah. Alright, cheers guys. Just my opinion. Okay, random ramblings are long enough. If I think of anything else, I'll try to mention it in the future. And thank you guys for watching my videos. Hopefully some of my thoughts that makes some sense, a little bit of sense here and there. And yeah, please subscribe and for more videos from me, and turn the bell, because otherwise you never get any notification from me. My channel is just way too small. Alright, later guys. Cheers.